Hello all. Today I'm going to show you how to set up Adobe Photoshop for the purpose of digital painting or digital sketching or doodling, however you want to call it. This is not for setting up photography. I'm intending this for people who are absolute beginners. You have never really used Photoshop before, maybe you've opened it once or twice, or it's been a very long time since you used Photoshop last and there's just been a lot of changes and you just need to remember where a few things are. This is for you. If you use Photoshop a lot, you may find this a bit redundant, but I've got a couple tricks that I use all the time in here anyways. Alright, so let's get started. When you first open Photoshop, and this is CC 2015, their latest release, which just came out like this week, this is the general layout that they start you out with. You're in Essentials. Their layout is just the different menus, the different buttons, the way they organize it to help you out. Depends on what you're doing. Different tools are certainly more handy than others. If I was doing photography, this would not be enough tools. For digital illustrating, it's close, but it doesn't have everything. So, first thing we're going to do is go over here. Do you see where it says Essentials in this little drop-down menu? We're going to change that to Painting. Now look and see what changes. Ah, yes, this area changed. The regular toolbar over here and the tool settings do not. They stay the same. They only change if you click on a different tool. Some people customize these a bit more. I kind of leave it as is. I'm happy with it. But over here, it's quite changed. Now you'll notice that they add this brush presets, which for painting is awesome because then you can jump back and forth to the brush you want. Layers are down here. Remember where this is because they are your best friend. Up here though, swatches and navigator. Navigator's handy. Swatches, it can be. Depends on what you're doing. But if you want to change colors on the fly, not so much. So if you go up to View, I'm sorry, not View, Window, my bad, and you go down to where it says Color, you can click on that or hit F6 on your keyboard. It brings up this awesome little menu, and in here you can drag around inside the square and you can go up and down the little Technicolor over here and you can change your color to whatever color you want. You have millions and millions of choices. I'm going to leave it at black for right now. If this is too small or any of these are too big or too small, what you do, this is amazing. You just move your mouse in between and you can make it bigger or smaller or wider. You can't go any thinner, but you can go wider if you need to. You can also detach things if you want to, but I pretty much leave it alone from here. There are other choices in here, other little menus. We'll get into this another time, but just to get going, this is what you need, this is what you need, and the rest of this is all set up nicely for you. So to make a new file, Command N on a Mac, Control N on a PC, and off we go. This is going to pop up. This is how you make a new file, a new illustration. I'm going to make mine 8 inches by 5. Now since I'd worked on one earlier, it saved these numbers. You can change that. If you don't want to work in inches, you don't have to. Pick whatever makes you happy over here. Don't make it like super duper huge unless you have a really awesome computer, and by super duper huge I mean 40 inches by 90 inches or several feet across, unless you've got a really heavy duty computer that can handle that load. Also, unless you're going to a really large format printer, you're never going to be able to print the thing. Alright, resolution. When I'm sketching, I leave mine at 150 pixels per inch. If it's 72, that's what we print text documents at. That doesn't really work for art. It makes everything look choppy and kind of nasty on the edges and colors aren't smooth. By the way, those little yellow things that keep popping up, that's Photoshop trying to help me out, for helping me to remember what everything means. I know Photoshop, I'm just letting my mouse hang. If I'm just doodling for the internet's sake, I'll put it at 150. If I know I'm going to print it, I will make it at least 300. But since I'm just doodling, 150. Color. If you know you're going to print it, CMYK. That'll make the printer happy with you. RGB is if you're doing it on a screen. So if I was making something that I'm going to put on an online gallery, definitely RGB. If I was making something that I know I'm going to print, CMYK. You can translate back and forth, but it's a little tricky and it takes more time. So whichever one you know you're going to do more of, or that's what you need it for first, put it in that mode and go. Now, CMYK is that cyan, magenta, yellow, black color. those cartridges you spend a ton of money for your printer. RGB is red, green, blue, and that is what all screens, every lit up device, iPad, a video game system, a TV, all of it, that's what they use. Now, background contents. Most folks start with white or background color. I'm one of the weirdos who starts with transparent, and the reason I like transparent is because I change my mind about the background colors so much that I just want to have the freedom to do it. It also starts me off with a layer that's totally open and unlocked. If I start with a white or a background that's already colored, I have to double click on it and then click on another menu, and I'm lazy, so I stick with transparent. If you're really happy with what you've got, you can save this as a preset. If you don't know if you're going to do that again, you just press OK. And here we are. Now, since mine is transparent, I have these little checker boxes. How exciting is that? Over here on the side, I want my paintbrush, and I forgot to change a number. There we go. So this is a paintbrush. Now, by default, the first time you pop in, it chooses the first brush for you. Yeah, that brush is not good for drawing. It's great for other things, but it's not great for drawing. If you draw with this, everything's going to look fuzzy, like you're looking through it through a glass of water or something. It's not going to look right. Hard round like this one, not so great. This one, no. There's a time and a place for this one, but regular just sketching is not it. Now this brush, do you see how it's got a nice sharp crisp edge and it has points on either end? That's the one you want. That one will mimic a pencil. If you're used to that, the best. Let's see, I've got black ink. I can see right here the square that's highlighted and in front is black. If I was on the other one, then it's in front. But I want a nice black ink. Now the minute I start drawing, you'll notice, because it's got this pointed edge, if I draw light, it stays thin. If I push harder, it gets thicker. And this reminds me more of a pencil, and it lets me have control. Now, some folks will change this to where the harder you push, the more you see, the less you push, the fainter it is. Now, I do that too, but I do it at different times. There's a time and a place. For sketching, I want this. Now, here's my other trick, and this may sound very strange. I'm going to change how see-through my pencil is. And what I'm going to change it up here, do you see where it says opacity and it says 100? I'm actually going to type in 30. Sometimes I do 75, but I'm more of a 30 for something like this. I did not actually come up with this. I learned this from another artist years and years ago. And, you know, it hasn't failed me yet. So whenever I'm drawing and painting, I go to 30 a lot. I do go to other numbers too, other opacity, how see-through something is, but 30 just is my go-to number. So you'll notice if I color, you'll see how it's just barely visible. I'm going to make my brush bigger. You can change the brush size right here, or you can hit the bracket keys on the keyboard. They will make it bigger and smaller. So now if I color over that, you see how my original lines are darker, and if I color over it again, you see how you can build up light and dark areas very quickly. And this just reminds me more of a pencil. Now, since it's on transparent, whatever I do is going to be pretty faint. So I'm going to go down here to my layers menu. See where it says layer? Layer, layer, layer. Down here on the bottom there's an icon that looks like a little page. It'll make a new layer for me. So I'm going to go to this one. Now normally I would not make this white. Maybe I would make it a gradient, I would make it another color, but just for the sake of being able to see what I'm doing, it's white. Alright. And now I have my pencil. Now you will notice, make this a bit smaller. There's no rule about how big or small it has to be. It just has to be the right size. And I'm drawing with white paint. There we go. So now I can just get to my doodling, and the opacity trick works because now I can build up my lights and darks just with some quick little lines. I don't have to spend a lot of time on it, you know. And that's really my goal. I want to get to the doodle. I don't want to spend, you know, a ton of time messing with things. Now for doodling digitally, the nice thing about layers is you can do some lines on some layers, other lines on another, but I'll cover that in another video. Let's give this guy some spikes. Now brush size can come in handy if you're going to go in and just do some really quick shading. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be inside the lines. For some reason, if you make it a little sloppy, people look at it and go, oh my goodness, that's so artistic. How long did you spend on that? And you just sigh and say, well, it was a lot of work. You don't want to tell them it only took you, 5 minutes. Now you can see with that big brush, if I just barely touch it, it stays a pretty thin line, and if I push hard, it's quite a fat line very quickly. Which again, sometimes this is good, sometimes this is bad. I don't really like that. I think I made it too dark. So I'm going to tap the X key so it changes it to white paint. I can actually lighten up what I did if I made it too dark. I can also tap the letter E to bring up the eraser. You'll notice the brush stays essentially the same. I can get rid of lines I don't want or need. For example, I don't like that eye. I'm going to go back to my brush, switch to black paint, go back in, redoodle that, and just make it good to go. So that's basically how you set up to get going and working in Photoshop. The more you do it, the faster and easier it gets, the more you can sit down and decide, little features that you want to change just to, make it work. If you like what you see, please subscribe. If you have a question or something that you would like me to show you specifically how to do, I will be doing things on shading and doodling practice and other things like that. But if there's something in particular you want to see first, leave a comment in the comments section. I will try to get to it as soon as I can. And happy doodling, friends!